Hey guys, it's Kat and I'm back today to do a foundation wear test / primer test. I am doing this as part of my e.l.f. Cosmetics month. I bought a bunch of e.l.f. products. I have done a full face of first impressions. Later in the month, I'll conclude by doing a sort of recap of what I think about the products, which ones I recommend, which ones I think are garbage, because there are some that are garbage. But I thought to really figure out what I think about some of these base products, I want to do a wear test. So when I do a base wear test, it goes for 12 hours. I really want to see how the foundation will wear over a full day. Background to my skin, I do have 36-year-old aging skin with slight lines occasionally. I do have quite a bit of redness that I like to cover, and also I have oily combination skin. So T-zone is quite oily, sides of my face are quite normal. It is currently winter in Australia, so it is not a time where we've got a lot of like oils breaking through and a lot of like sweat happening, but I do naturally break down foundation with my oils. So this review is definitely more about how these products work on oilier skin. If you have drier skin, your experience will probably be very, very different to mine. So the main things I'm testing today is the e.l.f. Camo CC Cream. Now this is supposed to be color correcting, full coverage, and natural finish. It also contains collagen, peptides, and niacinamide, and it's SPF 30, which is great. So it's a nice sort of everyday foundation if you like something with a bit more coverage. Again, I do, because I do have redness on my face. So I want to see how long this wears. I want to mention that I got the shade Light 210N. So it's a neutral shade, it's a light shade. It is darker than I sort of expected, and there is a little bit of difference with my face and neck, so I've had to bring it down a little bit. And I'm also wearing the e.l.f. 16-hour Camo Concealer, the matte finish one. Now this, I feel like e.l.f. need to get their colors a little bit more consistent. So this is Light 210N. This one is medium peach, and it is so light on me. Now I couldn't swatch these. I had to just take a gamble, and I feel like they need to revamp the names of their foundations and concealers and have it really consistent. So a light matches a light, a medium matches a medium. So that's a light neutral foundation, and that's the medium peach concealer for some reason. So I'm doing a wear test on those today, but I also wanted to see if the e.l.f. Poreless Putty Primer is good. So this is one of their products that a lot of people rave about. It's a putty primer. It's sort of like a thick lotion in a pot. And I'll read the claims from the website because they've got zero information on the packaging. And they're saying that it's the ultimate skin perfecting primer. It grips makeup for all day wear and a flawless finish. It's infused with squalane for optimal hydration. Smooth velvety texture glides over skin seamlessly. It's perfect for all skin types. And the Poreless Putty Primer is perfect for those who want a poreless, flawless complexion. So it gives the impression that it's like a pore blurring primer. It does say the velvety texture glides effortlessly over the skin, smoothing over imperfections while helping minimize the appearance of pores for a poreless effect. Now this is not one of those silicone primers that does really fill in the pores. This is a sort of different thing, and yeah, a lot of people rave about it, so I wanted to try it. So I've actually got this on half my face, and I'm going to compare throughout the day how it looks and how it wears, because it's supposed to grip the makeup, it's supposed to make me look flawless. We'll see how either side works. Now, I always set my base with a powder because I do have oily skin. If I don't do that, it just sort of wipes off my face. So today I've gone in with the e.l.f. Halo Glow Setting Powder in the shade Light. This is quite similar to their matte setting powder, but it just has a little bit of an luminosity to it. So it sets your base down, but it doesn't make it have a complete matte finish. It makes it have a little bit of luminosity. So that's where the luminosity is coming through. So what I'm going to do now is go back in time and show you me applying these products. And then I'm going to check in throughout the day, let you know how things are progressing, and ultimately at 12 hours, what I think about all the products individually and together. All right, so it's 8:20 a.m. and I'm going to start this off with half a face of Poreless Putty Primer by e.l.f. This to be completely honest, I might zoom in and show you, but I don't feel like it does anything to my pores anyway. I'm going to get quite a lot of it. I'm going to give it a good go. I just feel like it feels like a moisturizer. So I'll zoom in a bit more. All right, I've turned the brightness down quite a lot. You can see that that's just a bit of sunscreen sheen. I did my skincare about 20 minutes ago, maybe a little bit longer. Just put some on this side of my face, on my chin. And the main reason I'm using quite a lot is because I really want to see an effect, and also I've used this previously with just a little bit and I don't feel like it does anything. Well, get onto the side I need you to be on. So yeah, I thought I'll give it a good shot by putting a fair amount on just to see if it really has an effect. All right, so right now it's not filling in the pores. You can still see the pores. It just looks moisturized, but it doesn't look any less pore-like than this side. In my opinion, it just looks a little bit more plump because there's another layer of moisturizer on it. So there's that. I'll stay zoomed in, but I'm going in with the Camo CC cream. I'm going to start with this side of the face and then put on that side so there's no transfer over. And I'm using a sponge because I just feel like you can get a nice light layer, which is what I want. I don't want a thick, heavy, full coverage layer. I feel like from a CC cream, you want something that looks a little bit more natural, but I do like that it's got a bit of coverage to hide my redness, which is exactly what it's doing. It's covering redness. It's covering some of my sort of hormonal breakout sort of scars fairly well, but it feels nice and thin. So if you feel like these sort of foundations are too thick and heavy, just apply a lot less and just really dab it in. But that looks nice. It's a nice color. It matches my neck. So this very pink from redness, but I need a little bit of warmth added in just to match the rest of my body. Okay, so that's looking nice. There's a nice sheen to it because it's wet. It doesn't seem to be enhancing any pores, but it's not blurring any pores, but it looks nice. Now with the other side, just the same sort of concept. I don't feel like it's applying any better or any worse than the non-prime side. Again, nice thin layer. It's covered redness. It's covered most imperfections, scarrings covered. There's a little bit of stuff coming through, so it's not full coverage, but it's just one thin layer. Nice and shiny, nice and hydrated, but this is looking pretty much identical, and the pores look the same. To keep in with the e.l.f. theme, I'm using my Camo concealer. This is the matte one. This one's too light for me. It's medium peach, but for some reason that equates to very, very fair. But I'm just putting a little bit under my eyes. I'm going to leave... Usually I'll put a little bit of concealer around my nose and on my chin just to help with some longevity and cover those sort of really red areas. But because this is so light, it's more of a highlighting concealer. And I think most people sort of want to use this under their eyes, so that's what I'm sort of focusing on. So I've only used the smallest amount because firstly it's not a good color match for me, but also I don't like to use too much concealer under my eyes. It does sort of settle into the lines. Not so much settling into them, it just sort of emphasizes the lines a little bit, and I don't think it looks as good as people like to think it does. So a bit of concealer just to brighten the inner corner is sort of all I need. All right, I'm now going in with e.l.f. Halo Glow Powder to set this. I think this is a really lovely setting powder. It adds a little bit of luminosity, but like enough to sort of keep the skin looking healthy, but it also sets. Previously, I've tried some illuminating powders that don't actually set the base very well. Like I'm thinking Hourglass ambient lighting powders. They don't actually set your base very well. So you still have this wet sort of slippy business that on oily skin eventually slips off throughout the day or wears off really fast. And some of them just add too much luminosity, but this one's really beautiful. So it sets, so you can see it's actually setting the makeup, but it keeps a little bit of glow to the skin. So I'm just using a precision powder brush from Nabla, and I'm just going to do this very quickly. So it definitely takes away that wetness and that shine. The lighting, it's so early that the light is starting to come up and it's confused and it's messing with my camera. Just quickly. All right, so hopefully you can see that my base is actually set so I can touch it and it's not transferring, but there is a slight luminosity to the skin, so it still looks quite healthy, but it's not wet and sticky and tacky and gonna transfer off. But that glow, it doesn't look like it's highlighter all over my face. Like, it looks fine in like the T-zone. It's just where it catches a light, just has a little bit of a sheen. So it's a really, really beautiful setting powder if you're sort of sick of the really matte powders. Is there any difference to the sides? I feel like this side feels a little bit tackier, like it feels like there's more moisture to it, which makes sense because there's another layer of moisture that I just applied. I don't feel like the pores look any different. In fact, I think they actually look a little bit nicer on this side than they do on this side. And also I'm noticing that under my eyes, I feel like the concealer, when it was set, it looks a little bit more, I don't know if you can see this, looks a little bit more messed up, like it's not sitting as smooth, whereas this one, turn up the brightness a bit, hopefully you can see that's a little bit more smooth setting, like it's set properly, whereas I think maybe the extra layer of moisture made that set a bit funny because it's looking a little bit patchy and it's feeling a little bit tacky and wet. So I actually feel like this primer is doing a disservice to my base, which is why I don't like primers. This is a constant thing, so it's not a big surprise, but I was sort of hoping that this being a cult product was going to be something awesome. I'm going to go off and do the rest of my makeup and I'll be back to show you how it's looking, and then we'll do the wear test. All right, I'm back with pretty much a full face of e.l.f. I've got e.l.f. brow products, 2 of them. I've got e.l.f. eyeshadow. The liner and the mascara are not e.l.f. because I don't like their liner and mascara. I've got Putty bronzer, Putty blush on, so cream products. And on my lips, I've got the Hydrating Core Lip Shine in the shade Happy. So we'll see how all of this wears throughout the day, but on first impressions, I really don't see any difference between the 2 sides, except for possibly, I'll zoom in, what looks like a bit more creasing under my eye compared to this eye here, with the primed side. All right, it is now 1:41. Now, when I last checked in with the full face done, it was about 8:45. I had appointments at 9, so I had to rush my makeup. So it was just a 15-minute makeup look. I haven't touched up anything except for my lip product. I reapplied just before, but everything is holding up all right. I do have some things of note, but I think overall, I want to say that it looks pretty good. All right, up close and personal, I think like some things I want to mention is that the makeup is sitting really nicely. I've got no highlighter. I think that's just the setting powder adding a little bit of luminosity still. This does not feel oily at all. So again, that shine is from that setting powder. If you wanted a matte finish, obviously use a matte finish setting powder. If you wanted a little bit more dewiness, you would probably try a different foundation or not powder at all. But I think it looks really pretty. There is still blush on my face. There is still a little bit of bronzer. I think it is sort of settling down a little bit, but that might be the blush and bronzer, not so much the base. Everything is sitting nicely. Again, look, there's no breaking down on the forehead. The only thing I have noticed that's probably like unappealing is the creasing under the eyes. Like the concealer and powder combination is creasing and it's on both eyes. So I can't really blame the primer for that. I do think this eye is worse than that eye, but there is settling into the fine lines. And again, I don't think that's necessarily the foundation. I think it's definitely more the concealer. A little bit of oils breaking through around my chin and around my nose, but at this point in the day, everything seems to be quite good. And to be honest, there is no real difference between this side and this side. So the primer, in my opinion, doesn't make any noticeable difference. I feel like maybe when it comes to my nose, this side with the primer is oilier. And I also feel like my foundation has worn a little bit off on the cheeks. Like you can see the redness coming through. Granted, you can see it on this side as well, but I feel like just looking at it, this looks a little bit more patchy. But the differences are minute. Like you really have to get like up close and personal and look and go, is there any real difference between the two sides? But stepping back, I think this looks good overall at this point. I will do at least 1 or 2 other check-ins and conclude how this looks at the 12-hour mark. I'm really curious to see if the side with the primer will break down faster. At this point, again, minute differences. There's really not much going on. I'm just really surprised that for a primer that's supposed to blur your pores, there is no pore blurring on me anyway. So I feel like already it's a bust and just another step that I don't need. But we'll see if there's any difference later on. Before my next check-in though, I am going to be playing with a bit of makeup because I just received something in the mail and I want to start a review ASAP while my mum is still here looking after my kid. So when you see me next, I'll probably have more dramatic eye makeup, but I'll make sure not to touch the base. If I happen to touch around the eyes, look, we already know that the concealer's creasing. We're just gonna see how the rest of the foundation goes. So yeah, if I look different, it's not a different day. I've just changed things up a little bit. All right, it is 8:41 p.m. So I've been wearing this makeup for over 12 hours. You can see my eyeshadow has changed, but that's the only thing I've changed. Look, I'm looking a little bit, I'll have to get you in close and personal. I feel like my forehead is looking very dry. It's looking super dry. So if you have dry skin, this is not a foundation for you. I feel like what it's done is it's worn off, but then other areas have just stayed sort of dry and it looks very patchy. So this really hasn't broken down much with oils, which is crazy, but it has worn off. You can see it's worn off my chin, it's worn off my cheeks. This foundation is really strange because I think when you step back, it actually looks quite nice and it looks sort of intact. But when you do analyze it quite close up and you have a light shining on you, you can sort of tell that it's actually worn off quite a lot. When I step back, I'm like, this looks all right because I haven't gotten oily yet. But at the same time, it hasn't stayed perfectly intact. It's kind of gone a bit strange. Another thing I want to mention before I zoom out is I definitely had that creasing from the concealer. I think by putting new eyeshadow on, sort of covered it up a little bit, but you could definitely see it before. So for some reason today, this was creasing a lot on me. So if you have issues with product settling into fine lines, you'll probably want to avoid this one. Also, the shades are ridiculous. Like, medium, light, what are you doing? Something that's interesting to note is I feel like this primer has actually done a bit of a disservice to me. Hopefully you can see that on my forehead, the side that's actually worn off most patchy is the side that had the primer. And there's more foundation on my forehead where I didn't have the primer. I feel like that's the same situation for my cheeks. This looks like it's more red, but I think that's just because I've got more redness there. But in terms of where I've got more patchiness, it's actually on the primed side. I didn't find any benefits to how this made my foundation look. So it didn't look like I've got more blurred pores. It didn't look smoother. It looked exactly the same as the other side. But that extra layer of hydration means it doesn't adhere to the skin as well as I'd like it to. So it does tend to wear off faster and more patchier. So that's what I've noticed with this. I also think the under eye area with the concealer started creasing faster and creased a little bit more with this. I think the one product that I can probably recommend comfortably to you guys is actually this powder. Of course, I don't have the glow anymore. A lot of it's worn off. A lot of it's sort of doing its thing. But I do think this is a really nice setting illuminating powder, which is an uncommon combination. Often you get setting and you get matte, or you get illuminating and sort of highlighting. I feel like this is the perfect mix of the two, where it will still set your foundation but add a slight amount of glow that doesn't make you look too shiny, sparkly, or greasy. So I think this is a really nice powder, and I think it's probably the winner out of the 4 products I used today. The Poreless Putty Primer is definitely the worst product because I feel like it doesn't add anything beneficial to my routine anyway, and if anything, it makes my foundation wear off faster, which is against its claims, but that's what primers do on me, so I sort of expected it. These two I think I'm going to play with a little bit more. I still think that this one, from afar, it looks all right. I think this is a nice sort of daily foundation, but up close, there are definitely flaws to it, and it really highlights that if you've got dry skin, this would not be for you whatsoever. I like the initial look of this. I like how it applies. It's really simple and quick to apply. A nice thin layer. A nice thin layer covers enough on a daily basis, so it sort of ticks a lot of boxes for me. I don't mind how this is wearing down, because I think, again, stepping back it looks all right, but when you get up close it starts to look a bit funky. But at 12-hour mark, most foundations do start to look a bit funky on me, so you know, it is what it is. For me, I think the price point is a little bit high. In Australia, it's $35, like Australian dollars. And I think for e.l.f., I'd love to see this knocked down to like $20, $25. At the $35 mark, I'm sort of like, do I just spend another 10 or 15 bucks and get a sort of more like NARS foundation or something? So I feel like it's quite high for what it is. But yeah, I'll keep using this. I just don't know if it's going to be one that I'll repurchase and keep in my stash. This concealer did me dirty today, and it's kind of interesting because I don't think it's done that before, and I've used this a handful of times. So what I'm going to do over the next couple of weeks is use this more consistently and let you know when I notice creasing and when I don't, because I have heard people say negative things about this, that it does crease, and I've heard other people say that it's really, really good. I was sort of in the it's good, and now I'm sort of starting to see some flaws, but I think I want to get to the bottom of why it's creasing, because it doesn't happen every time. So I will recap this when I do my like best and worst of e.l.f., and I'll let you know what I come up with and what I have discovered about it. So it's a bit of a mixed bag review, but at least I got to definitively find out what I think about the primer. And after I think I do my recap video, this is going to end up being like a foot cream or something, because I don't want to keep it around if it doesn't do good things to my base. Like, sorry, e.l.f., but your hero product is a 0 in my opinion. It just does not work. All right, so all the products I've talked about, I will have listed in the description box in order of mention, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.